to our joint webinar with Metabase. We're going to talk about how you can get instant insights with Cube and Metabase. We have Brian and Tony from Cube, and then Luis from Metabase to speak on the topic. But before we get started, a few logistics pieces I wanted to cover. If you have any questions, ask them at any time. Simply enter them in and click submit, and we'll get to those questions during the Q&A portion of the webinar. The recording of the webinar will be available on demand right on our events page right after the show. And if you have any feedback, tell us how we did with a quick survey right after we end the webcast. And what we're discussing today, we're going to talk about what is Cube, get into what our semantic layer sync does, talk about what Metabase is, and do a live demo with Cube and Metabase. And then we'll jump right into Q&A. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it off to Brian to kick things off. Welcome, Brian.
Hey, thanks, Nathan. Hey, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. My name is Brian Bickle, and I'm the head of partnerships here at Cube. And I have the wonderful good fortune to manage the relationship with Metabase. So I'm really happy to be presenting with Luis from Metabase here today, and always good to be doing partner webinars. So let's go ahead and get into what is Cube. At Cube, we build a universal semantic layer product, and that product's ambition is to power the next generation of data-driven applications. What we mean by data-driven applications, we mean things like embedded analytics solutions, connecting disparate BI tools, and even now serving AI agents. Specifically with AI agents, that's usually bringing relational data or data from data warehouses or other sources to these AI agents. And if you're trying to understand, maybe why we build a semantic layer product or what challenge we're trying to solve in the market, the problem we're really trying to solve is for customers having many different data sources and trying to juggle the complexity of managing that data estate and providing consistent metrics and measures and dimensions and data models to all of their different data applications and what we call the downstream data experiences. One big problem that we've identified in the past with this is that the common approach used to be doing data modeling inside individual BI tools or in individual applications. And when you do that over a data estate with a lot of different tools, you get many different small data models that you have to try to reconcile and try to keep consistent. And you're doing a lot of repeating yourself, which is sort of a bad practice in software development. So the big idea behind the universal semantic layer, or one of them, is to pull all of those individual data models out of the individual business intelligence tools or embedded analytics tools or other applications and unify them in a consistent place so that you don't repeat yourself and that you don't have inconsistent metrics defined. Now, for thinking about the different functionalities that we provide in Cube and what we kind of believe, makes up the semantic layer, we identify these as what we call our 4 pillars. These different things are data modeling, which data modeling is sort of the main component of the semantic layer. It's where we connect all of our different data sources. We define our dimensions, our measures, our metrics, and we can do that in a code-first experience. We started with JavaScript. We added YAML. We're kind of expanding that with templating with like Python and Jinja. And, we can SDLC all of these data models, right? So we can manage them with best sort of software practices, by checking them into Git repos and version controlling them that way. And then after that, we maintain access control through a fine-grained role-based access control scheme to all of these data models so that we can create a consistent access paradigm for all of the downstream applications that are going to be connecting to these data models. And then we provide a caching technology called Cube Store that is all custom built software from Cube. And that is a aggregate aware pre-aggregation engine that is very good at aggregating data and supplying fast performance for any of these downstream tools. And finally, everything leaves Cube as either a REST API, a GraphQL API, or what we call our SQL API, which is a Postgres dialect. And that gives us great compatibility with really almost any use case you're trying to solve. So if you're trying to figure out maybe why you might need a semantic layer or why the modern data stack needs one, these are some of the benefits that we provide. And they're really around the things we talked about with data consistency and defining metrics once and sort of trying to get to that holy grail of a single source of truth, security through the access control paradigms that we provide, performance with our caching and Cube Store, and then flexibility, time to value, and future proofing through essentially, all of our managed, offerings around the virtual data models that we provide, being able to swap in data sources, as your stack evolves, being able to swap them out and remap data models, and then also being able to change, any of those downstream tools. And if you're trying to understand maybe like where Cube sits in the general sort of data architecture landscape, typically we sit on top of the data sources, such as the warehouses, relational databases, query engines. With our addition of DuckDB, we even sit on top of files now, such as like JSON, CSV, or Parquet. We typically interact with transformed data. So one question we frequently get is, are you a transformation tool? Like, how do you bump up against something like a SQL mesh or a DBT? Typically, we sort of hand off data, from those. We pick up, I would say, rough grain transformations, and then we sort of do like fine grain sort of metric definition. And then after Cube, you're connecting to the embedded analytics use cases we talked about earlier, various, BI tools like Metabase is what we're going to look at today, and then, increasingly these different AI agents. And with that, I want to hand it over to Tony.
Yeah, thanks, Brian. For the BI use cases specifically, there's a big need to be able to keep those tools in sync with the Cube data model. And so as you can imagine, if you start getting many different tools, many different cubes, many different views going on in your semantic layer, keeping those, pushing those down to your BI tools, whether you've got just the one and you've got many models to manage, or you've got several tools or several different, maybe you've got a dev and a stage and a prod deployment of a BI tool. If you want to keep all those in sync, that's going to be a lot of manual effort. Once you update the data model, you got to go out to that tool, update your data source, bring in the new measures or the new dimensions. And so we came out with the semantic layer sync to help push those out automatically to your BI tools. So this is going to also help eliminate that many-to-many chaos. So you're not having to do all that rework, which inevitably will lead to mistakes and things not matching, things not aligning. We keep that all under source control, and we automatically push that out as part of a CI/CD process. So when you're committing your data model updates to the main branch of your Cube data model, it's going to go ahead and kick off a task that pushes that out to your downstream BI tools. It also allows us to share the cache and the security, the data model from all those three APIs. So the BI tools are going to probably use the SQL API, but that's going to stay in sync with any other APIs that you may be using for other tool sets. And so what you can imagine is as you have a couple BI tools or a couple iterations of the BI tools, like I said, dev, stage, and prod, you're able to just handle your data modeling workflow in Cube. And when you commit, then those changes automatically get pushed out to the different BI tools or instances of those tools. And we'll do a demo of that in a little bit, right after we talk a little bit about what is Metabase. I'll hand it over to Luis now.
Hey, yeah, thank you. Can you see me? I'm supposedly you can see me. Okay. First of all, I want to thank you. I want to thank all the team from Cube from inviting us to, like, this is amazing. We love the tool. We love what you guys are doing. So first of all, thank you very much for inviting us. I wanted to give a little like kind of like a super high level glimpse of what is Metabase for anyone that might not know about it. I'm seeing in the attendee list some customer of us, so you guys might already know it. But Metabase is how we want to call it, like the easiest and open source way for everyone to ask questions and learn from your data. I'm not kidding, and in fact, in a couple of minutes after Tony shows the sync, I'll do a super brief demo in like how you want, or how you might be able to go from completely zero, like you don't have absolutely anything, just like probably the connection string to your data warehouse, to a dashboard and share it like in super brief 5 minutes. You don't need anything more than that. And in fact, it's so easy that you can even like deploy it on your own laptop, on your own server, on your infrastructure, or if you don't want to go through the burden of setting things up and doing backups and all, everything that you need for sustaining a server, you can go cloud hosted. We have a cloud. You can go to your cloud and literally in under 5 minutes you'll have a Metabase server up and running. It's super easy, all like point and click, no SQL needed for doing or for asking questions to your data. So Tony, want to show us how the semantic sync works?
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll start off with me finding out how to share my screen again. Wait just 1 second. Awesome. I think this is working here. So we're going to make a little assumption that we already have our data model set up in Cube. Otherwise, we could go through a whole other webinar on how to do that. So we're going to go through just a quick overview of what this looks like. We'll say we've got 6 different cubes set up here. We've got line items, we've got orders, we've got product categories, etc. Each of these are going to be connected out to a table in our upstream data source. This could be Postgres or Snowflake or Redshift or anything, or a combination of those. We've got our join logic, our relationships, all modeled out here in code under source control. You can see I'm on a branch here, and I'm about to go into development mode, which is a sub branch, and that's all handled under source control. So everything's very code based here at Cube. And we've got our metrics definitions or measures defined, so we can handle all that in one place, have a single source of truth here. So the 6 different cubes here that we've got are going to be tied together through views. So these are the views you can think of those as the presentation layer, and probably what you want to be exposing to your downstream tools, and whether those are embedded tools or BI tools or AI agents. When you can define that kind of denormalized layer, those entity objects, those are going to be make a lot more sense to the end user. They're not going to have to figure out the join logic that you've put together in the cubes. They're just going to be able to use, have all the related fields that they need together in the view. So you can see we're bringing in a couple different, we're bringing in something from some fields from the users table. We're bringing in some fields from the orders table, and we've got our joins already defined in the cubes. So we're just going to bring in those 6 fields there for employees, for sales. Similarly, we're bringing in just from a few more different tables, or for a few different cubes, and we'll take a look at what that looks like. So over in our BI integrations page, right now I haven't set up a sync, and you can see over in my Metabase account, just refresh this real quick, nothing up my sleeve. We've got a few other demos set up in here, but we'll see this one's going to be named something a little bit different. So we can create a sync to Metabase, and I'm going to put in my username and password here for Metabase. Forgive me as I copy paste everything from my off-screen notepad here. Nobody hack me before I get to change that, please. Please and thank you. All right, so we've got these configurations. They're saved in code. We can also, as we probably should, move things like the password and the user out to be environment variables, and we can. There's a easy way to reference those within our code, so that way they don't have to live under our source control as they shouldn't. So we'll create this sync now, and it'll take just a minute for that to apply. But we can see over in our data model, that's going to live under Cube.js. So I've got all my other logic for all the other functions that I want here, but that's automatically been added to my Cube.js file. And I can control things like the name and the database, what I want it to be called over on the Cube side. So let's take a look at the BI page. So we've got the Metabase sync here. It's never been synced. Let's go ahead and start that sync. And again, I'm not on the main branch, so this isn't going to automatically sync over there. The initial sync, depending on the number of objects that you have, for us, it'll take probably about a minute, less than a minute. But if you've got a lot of different models, it's going to have to go through a lot more REST API calls in order to push all those objects and fields over to Metabase. So we can see that sync succeeded. So we'll go back to our Metabase, refresh this, and there is the Tony demo for Metabase demo. We can see it synced across those 3 views. Again, those are in our data model under views for employees, sales, and supplier sales. We've got those 3 available here. So now I'll kick it over to Luis to talk about what we can do once our data is in Metabase, how we can make this into a visual aspect for our end users.
Thank you so much, Tony. I'm going to show you a few more things that you can do with Metabase, which are pretty awesome, if you ask me. Let me go through some steps. Like there we go. There. So what I'll show you now is a local Metabase instance that I have set up on my on the laptop. That instance, and in fact, all of what I'm going to show is in that repository that you see there. So like if you want to reproduce what I'm gonna do, it's gonna be over there. I'm going to do the setup and the connection to Q, which is pretty awesome, completely via APIs. So like everything that you'll see me doing, you can do it with API calls, completely out, like building whole automations. We have customers that build like super amazing automations for setting up absolutely everything. Then I'm going to create a dashboard, which is gonna come with lots of questions. Those dashboards will also be created automatically via a feature that we call X-rays. So you'll see how that feature works in order to like build automations around how to like doing some exploratory analytics. And then I'm going to share it via 2 ways. One is going to be via a subscription, which is basically an automated email that you can set up on a Cadence. And also, and related to what Jeff sent us in the questions, if you have any questions, please let us know about them on the chat. Related to what Jeff sent us, I'm going to basically embed Metabase on an application, like on a parent web application. So you will see me like putting an iframe inside an application, not via code. I mean, everything is on the rep already. But you'll see me doing single sign-on from a parent application to Metabase in an iframe. So you'll see what we call full application embedding or interactive embedding. All right, let's head to it. I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to show you what I have. Cool. So this is Metabase. I added the Cube.js database via API. Like whenever the application is set up, I just wait for it and I just call the APIs and add Cube database. Like you can add any database, anything that I'm doing here, you can do via APIs, absolutely everything. So I don't know, let's just tell Metabase, give me a dashboard. Boom, there you go. Like just give me a dashboard with all the metadata that came from the database. I can even save it. Like there you go. Just have a dashboard ready to like go tweak and reuse, even through drill down if I want to, right? Boom, there we go. Cool. Let's say that I want to share this dashboard with people. I go to subscriptions. I just come here and let's say to some test user. I want to send it early. Maybe I want to complete the filters or not. Also, I might be able to attach the results. So, people can do last mile analytics when they get these files. Cool. Let's do some tests to see how it looks. And I'm gonna head to some dev development email server that I set up here on my machine as well. Like it's taking just a little bit of time. By the way, I just did this very, very quickly, so it might fail. So forgive me if this thing fails. It should come soon. Come on, always, the demos are a little bit hard when you do it live. It's taking too much time, so probably, oh, there you go. Let's see if this thing worked. No, clearly it didn't work. Sorry, like this should have worked, and it didn't. So, but there should be an email there. All right, this is one way of sharing, dashboards to people via email. You can also set up alerts, things like, I want to see if something goes above a certain threshold or, some condition is met. I want to send an email or probably a Slack alert to people. That is something also that you can do. But now let's go to the external analytics use case, something that some person in the questions asked. Like, Metabase is a really, really interesting option when you want to do internal analytics. But what happens if you want to share this, externally? Well, you have two options. The first option is that you can literally come here and say, I want to embed, I didn't set up the embedding key, but you can just share this dashboard or share a question externally, and you can even pass to this dashboard's parameters via the URL. So like everything is static. People will see the charts. They will see. In fact, let me quickly do that. They will see the charts. They will see everything they need. Embedding, and let's generate the key. There we go. Boom. Let's go and share this dashboard so you can see how it looks. There we go. We embed this dashboard, somewhere. We can even lock the filters. So people, they get into the dashboard and they are not able to tweak the filters that I just put for them. Like they just see the data that belongs to them. This is really interesting, and lots of use cases around the world for this. But what happens if you want people to click on here and you want people to do drill down and drill through, right? I mean, this is not the option. All right, so this is why we have another use case, another embedding option, which is the full app embedding or interactive embedding. How does this work? So I have a parent application here. Again, it's on the code. And what this parent application does, whenever you click on this link, it will give me Metabase inside an iframe. Boom. And what just happened here is that Metabase did a single sign-on with the parent application. Everything happened on the fly when I clicked that. There was a JWT token generated that was exchanged between the backend and a server that I have here. And basically there was there's an authentication. The user was able to get into Metabase from within another application, and they can play with their data if you want to. You can apply row level security. You can make people, do their own questions and dashboards. Maybe there's a dashboard that you already did for someone, and here you go. The person is even seeing this, and they can continue playing with their data the same way I did when I was, accessing Metabase with the internal analytics use case. So this is really, really cool. There are many, many other things that you can do with Metabase. I'm not going to cover those in this webinar, but you can always contact us if you need anything. So I guess now we'll move to the Q&A section, if I'm not mistaken.
Great. Yeah, I guess we can move on to Q&A. Thanks, Luis. Thanks for showing us Metabase. I really appreciate you kind of going through the demo there and showing us the functionality. I appreciate you keeping Tony and I from having to do that. So thanks for being here. We do have a few questions in the Q&A, and I think we already answered one of them. I'll answer one from Raphael. He asks, is Semantic Layer Sync available in the self-hosted environment? And I think he's asking about Cube Core, the open source Cube product. And no, Semantic Layer Sync is a product or a feature that's only available in Cube Cloud. So that is our commercial offering, which you can find at cube.dev. And there's one more Cube question here. Hakan asks, how will we manage column-based, row-based, and case-based data access? So I'm going to actually let Tony answer that one.
Yeah. So in Cube, in the data model, there's a parameter called public, which is basically the accessibility or the visibility parameter. So inside that, you can do a very basic false or true, and whether or not we want to show that. But we can also compute that dynamically. So we can use the user's security context, whether that's a role or an organization that person is a part of, that we're evaluating logic for. So is this person in the HR team or department? If so, then they can show the cube, or they can show the view, or they can show the column or the dimension. And that works the same for measures as well. We can do data masking through the public parameter as well. From a row-based perspective, there's a couple of different options. The most common is to use a special where predicate in the SQL query that goes from between Metabase and Cube, which is __ user, and we can pass an identifier for that user over to Cube, and so then the data will be rendered based on that username by the logic that we have built out in the data model. That can also include an external API call to something like Okta or a database table that might have those rules in it, or it could be part of a join that is you're joining a user entitlement table to your data table. So lots of different options there, lots of flexibility.
Tony, let me add something to that answer, which is really, really amazing. In the link of the GitHub repository that I shared, there were some really interesting use cases where that we covered in a previous webinar with the Cube team. There were some interesting use cases where using Cube plus Metabase, in some cases that Metabase didn't cover the functionality, Cube covered that, and by using, a Metabase sandboxing and also Cube row level, which is really, really amazing. So just head to that repo. It will have really interesting slides of, which really complex stuff you can achieve with both products.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Another question here, a couple more from Hakan. He asks, is there any premium support when we have any problems on Metabase? Luis, do you want to talk about the different offerings of Metabase and kind of like what support looks like?
Yeah, absolutely. So in Metabase, you have, first of all, like a free forever, like hosted yourself product, which you can go there, you can like download it and run it whatever you want. That product does not have any kind of like support. We always say that people can go to the forums if they need some help. and either us on a best effort basis, or even the community can answer your questions. And then we have the paid tier. The paid tier is you have like I would say three types. One is the free product. I mean, no premium features, but hosted on our cloud. If you use that, which we call starter, you have support. Like we support the users that run on our cloud, but they are running like the product without any set of features. And then we have Pro and Enterprise. Like those two offerings have premium support. They have different like support levels, and they like it's a wide spectrum of offerings. So I would suggest that you have any questions, just contact us at sales@metabase.com. There are many flavors of premium support with that.
Cool. And yeah, I would actually point out that Cube is a very similar model, right? I mean, we have an open source product which we call Cube Core. You can download that. You can run it on whatever environment you want. Specifically, that would be useful for on-prem, because our cloud product, we do not have an on-premises version of that. And like Luis said, our support for that is through our community Slack. We have something like 8,000 or 9,000 people in there, so you can get questions answered. But again, I mean, the difference between Cube Core and Cube Cloud is that in Cube Cloud, we do provide full support, and we have some additional functionality. And then, of course, we manage hosting as a managed platform. Let's see. There's another question here. I think this is actually going to be a Metabase question. Is there an export option for Excel?
Yes, there is. You can export any question in Metabase to CSV, JSON, Excel, and now we added PNG. Like you can export the question to like a chart and like to a picture. And in the most recent version, we added the feature to export the entire dashboard to a PDF, which is something that people were like crazy about. And there it is.
Yeah, I think we all know like we're not getting rid of Excel anytime soon. So we all have to support our Excel exports. There was one more question in here. I think we answered this to some degree, but a viewer asked, what do we get at the end if we use Cube for a Metabase user point of view? And then he kind of goes on to say, like, we have the data modeling, permissions, and sharing options already. I would say, Luis sort of addressed this earlier with some of the advanced use cases that you can solve with the intersection of the tools. The other thing I would add to that maybe that is sort of worth talking about is the performance gain inherent in Cube's caching. And that's achieved via our Cube Store, which is our custom caching and pre-aggregation engine that we build and that we ship with Cube. So I would take a look at that, especially if you have, maybe larger data sources or like higher row count things, or if you have maybe more unwieldy or sort of unmanageable data sources that maybe have sort of OLAP query performance challenges. Then Cube Store and the caching technology can be really useful to you. Okay, we do have another question in here. The viewer says, hello, we are looking into using Cube to migrate away from DBT metrics since DBT is deprecating their metrics package and forcing users into metric flow, which does not have an integration with Metabase. Our plan would be to move metric definitions to Cube and query them in Metabase. Do you think this is a good use case for Cube, and what would that look like? Well, at Cube, we think that's a great use case. So not just a good use case. I mean, yeah, obviously we do compete with DBT and their semantic layer and what they've shipped before, and with kind of them going back and rethinking about the product and integrating metric flow has changed things a lot for users. We actually had an integration with DBT metrics where Cube could synchronize definitions out of DBT metrics, but we had to deprecate that package when they brought in metric flow and sort of changed the application. So we are, for our own integration with DBT, we're waiting to see what the next version of the semantic layer looks like. But to answer your question, yeah, I mean, obviously we have a great integration with Metabase. It's one that we put a lot of emphasis on making sure works. We don't have semantic layer sync, for example, for every BI tool yet. Metabase was one of the first 2 tools that we built it for. And like, we're really happy to get it out there, make sure it works. And it's a very important integration for us. So yeah, as far as, what BI tool you could choose to pair with Cube, Metabase is like right there at the top for us. Like, we're very happy with that relationship. So again, I think, if you are looking for a different semantic layer, we would definitely recommend taking a look at Cube, and the integration is top notch. Let's see.
I can grab another one here that's
Yeah, go ahead.
For the self-hosted version of Cube, so our Cube Core open source. Is there any other way to integrate Cube and Metabase, or is semantic layer sync the only option? So that's a great call out. There's the SQL API where Cube is basically you're connecting to Cube as if it's a Postgres database. We're Postgres LineWire compatible. So you would just, from Metabase, you'd say, I want to start create a new data connection. You select Postgres, you connect to the Cube SQL API endpoint, and you're able to still run those queries and still have that integration without the semantic layer sync, because the semantic layer sync is for Cube Cloud only. It's just, for the larger use cases, the larger data models, you'll have a much better time integrating with while using semantic layer sync. I guess, and then a follow-up question, can semantic layer sync be used with BYOC? So BYOC, for those that don't know, is basically the most integrated layer of Cube Cloud. So if you need Cube Cloud to run on your own cloud account for various security or legal compliance reasons, we can deploy Cube Cloud onto a customer-owned cloud account. And yes, you would have semantic layer sync with BYOC.
I've got one more in here. Got a user asking, is there a chance to get a private demo with Cube and Metabase together? And yeah, happy to do that. We can reach out to you after the webinar and arrange a custom demo and talk to you about your use case. So yeah, if anybody else is interested in that, of course, we're happy to do that. We got another viewer asking, can Cube Cloud be self-hosted if we want to do so? So Tony just talked about BYOC, which is our running Cube Cloud on your own VPC or your own infrastructure in public clouds. That is the extent of that. I mean, we don't have a capability for you to run the same code base on-prem. So, for instance, if you're in your own data center, we can't support that, but we do have varying levels of integration into your platform in public cloud. Let's see. Let's see, this question, there's a rather long question here. I'm kind of trying to summarize. We've got a viewer out there asking, is the expected working model with semantic layer sync that all complex derived statistics are defined in the Cube layer and Metabase is only used to customize visualization on top? That's probably right, I think. What we would say is typically the data modeling layer in Cube is usually more robust than the sort of lightweight semantic layer in BI tools. And part of the reason of bringing a semantic layer in-house is to, do that data modeling and metric definition and complex business logic in one location, and then providing it to all downstream tools. So yeah, I mean, the best practice is typically porting that back up the stack to the semantic layer. Okay. Luis, I'm going to give you this one. Adam's got a question. For Metabase full app embedding, does every tenant user count as a Metabase user for billing purposes, or is there a model for billing on active users only?
Cool. So in Metabase, when you do an authentication, that user is counted as an active user. Like it's being active. It's like was created in the application. it doesn't mean that you can go and deactivate it. Like we have like many, I would say, in the spectrum of users, we have literally a lot of people that like they offer, for example, the static embedding on some parts of the application. And then for maybe top tier users that pay most in their own applications, they offer the full app. So it's like they play with both types of embeddings at the same time, not to go like full app embedding or full static embedding. So yeah, it's charged as a user, as a normal user in Metabase.
We've got another viewer asking, can we integrate our data catalog platform APIs to Cube, or do we have to define all definitions again? That's a very interesting question, because we are looking at supporting data catalogs right now as integration roadmap. So I'd definitely be happy to work with you and understand which catalog you guys are using and maybe how you envision connecting it to Cube, because that's certainly an area that we're thinking about. Yeah, one more question. Will there be a recording of this webinar available afterwards? Yeah, there will be. As Nathan said in the beginning, all of our webinar recordings are hosted on our events page. We'll make that available, and yeah, you'll be able to go back through this if you want. Tony, we got one more here. One more about semantic layer sync. Maybe I'll ask you to answer this. Do you want to talk about the multi-tenant support in semantic layer sync and its kind of level of maturity and like what we expect users to do with it?
Right. So with semantic layer sync, that's really just the way to push the data objects up into the BI tools. So as far as the multi-tenant support goes, if we're talking about row level security, for example, those rules aren't going to change between our prior, more mature SQL API and this implementation. Under the hood, we're still using the SQL API to make those requests back from the BI tool to Cube. We have a new, improved way to keep those models in sync. As far as multi-tenant support, if you're talking about maybe you're synchronizing to a different Metabase instance for each client. You've got 20, or you've got your own 20 clients that you're synchronizing the same model to. So that's definitely a newer use case, as semantic layer sync is a new release. So we'd want to definitely work with you on making sure that that's set up right and is configured for success. I will say, it does support those multiple connections. So it'll just be a matter of it going through the list and synchronizing to each tool. So I'd love to learn, more about that, more about your specific use case as well.
I'm going to answer the last one, which is
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it says, does Metabase require aggregated metrics? Can I use transaction or order-based tables? How will its performance? So there is no need we don't have any requirement. Metabase can connect to any database, any model, if the database is supported, right? There's a list of supported databases, but there is no kind of requirement to connect it to a pre-aggregated table or something which is pre-aggregated. In fact, we have customers ranging from solo teams or super small teams that connect Metabase directly to the transactional database. And we have public companies and people that run massive data lakes. And when I mean massive, it's super massive things that they need to aggregate their data because of the performance reasons, right? They won't be able to finish a query in a decent amount of time if they don't aggregate it. So there's no requirement. You can connect it to anything which is supported.
We've got another question about separate repository environments for business and the data team for Cube and Metabase. And at least on the Cube side, I'll say we have monorepo support, so we're able to say pick a folder path within your monorepo, and that would drive your Cube data model, but you could manage that outside of Cube, as far as who can commit to which branches on there, and then push those into your monorepo main repository or main branch, and then that would get synchronized over to Cube. So there's probably a path to do that. Again, we could talk more about your specific use case on a further call.
We've got a question about connecting to Microsoft Azure SQL database and external APIs. I'm going to take the Azure SQL database question. We do have a Microsoft SQL Server driver, and as long as you're talking about the product that would connect to the same driver, you should be able to do that. I'll plead a little bit of ignorance on the Azure platform. There are a lot of different databases over there. So I think your question is actually about one of the more relational-based database products. So we should be able to connect to that with the Microsoft SQL driver. But if you try it and you have any problems, you can definitely reach out to our support, or you can get a hold of Tony and I, and we can chat with you about your use case. Now, the external API question. Cube data sources are typically what we would kind of figure as like relational databases, data warehouses, query engines, now files with our DuckDB connector. If you do have external API use cases, I would say the typical pattern is to maybe materialize that data into one of those types of platforms, but there are some sort of I guess, advanced use cases using our Python functionality to connect to external APIs. And we can definitely talk with you about that. It's a good question. Is the pricing cheaper than Power BI so I can use Cube Metabase instead to embed in a SaaS application? Luis, I'll maybe pass that to you, because let's talk about maybe like the apples to apples on like the BI tool.
So
I think that's a great use case for Metabase.
Yeah, definitely. I like, please don't get me wrong on this. I am not the perfect person to talk about like pricing, because I mean, I'm a success engineer, so I get paid for making people and companies successful with their Metabase usage. So I would suggest that you contact sales@metabase.com and check out the price. It's not that we are not. Also, don't get me wrong on this. Not that we don't want to be transparent. In fact, if you go to metabase.com/pricing, I believe, I don't remember the exact page, you will see all of our prices. Like, we are super transparent on that. But definitely, like, maybe you have a specific use case or something that you want to discuss with the sales team, and maybe they'll be able to give you a perfect pricing for your use case. So I will refer you to our pricing page, definitely, for that.
Yeah, and just a comment about maybe using the combination of Cube and Metabase to power embedded analytics in a SaaS application. I think that's a great use case of both tools. And the reason I say that is because Cube can give you the connectivity to all of the different data sources that you're talking about, build a unified data model, and then provide the really fine-grained access control, as well as the caching that you would want to power a SaaS application. So all of those kind of like data characteristics are really kind of what you want in like a responsive, I guess like low latency application, and then Metabase on top for the embedded visualizations.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for all those questions. It was great to see them come in, and we're always happy to answer those. So if you have any questions for us on the bottom of the platform, please reach out. We also have these resources for Cube and Metabase. If you want to check those out, please do. And as Brian mentioned, we'll have this recording available on demand right on our events page later today. Have a great day, everybody. Hope to see you again soon. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.